Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Flohr with MTM Services. I'm back again. This time, joined by Kyle Karen, our
Hello.
associate consultant with MTM Services, as we focus today on supervision and coaching and results for optimal results in a remote environment. When we think about everything that you've done over the past several weeks, moving brick and mortar organizations into a remote telehealth environment, you have done outstanding work. You've done some really good work. Things that I'm hearing all across the country are really supporting the work for consumers and families in your areas, as well as your staff, and keeping them safe. So reviewing and engaging the strengths of your team when you want to move to remote supervision. So just because we're working remotely doesn't mean we're stopping supervision. In fact, we need to actually have more supervision, more contact with our team members when they're working remotely. And our supervision style and using those strengths to help achieve kind of the clinical and performance outcomes that you really want for your team members in this new remote environment. And recognize the talent that each staff member brings to this new remote environment, enhances their effectiveness, improves morale, promotes improved teamwork, and expands your organization and your unit's capacity to help better serve the public. One of the things we do know is that during these times, as well as working with team members remotely, the benefits of remote supervision is really it helps retention. During this time, if the staff have questions, and we'll talk about some of those in a little bit, but really looking at employee satisfaction and engagement, keeping our team members engaged in the new remote and tele environment. Skill acquisition. Many team members have now acquired Zoom skills that can add those to their resumes. But really helping their staff and their consumers kind of updating and help maneuver this new telehealth environment. High levels of customer service that we're seeing, client outcomes, seeing really client improving along the way as we move forward, and employee motivation, employing them and motivating them to meet the needs of our clients.
Yeah, and building off what Michael said, remote supervision, it's going to require a little more involvement up front in the beginning of the process as you and your team members get to know how you're going to do things in this environment. So planning that strategy, it'll make the job easier in the long run and allow you and your team members to be more creative in how you do these sessions going forward.
I think when you think about remote supervision, all team members involved in the supervisor relation take responsibility for organizing and structuring the session. And we're going to talk about how you put into place an agenda at least 48 to 72 hours ahead of time. So we know what I want to talk to Kyle about. He knows what I know what he wants to talk to me about. And we share responsibility for the outcomes and results of those decisions during our supervision. But you as a manager, I think one of the things we have to think about is managing on a day-to-day activity. Thinking about moving to my home office as opposed to being in the office is your buy-in as a manager. Are you bought into providing services via telehealth, helping supporting your team members, providing a proactive solution, really focus on we can do this attitude and creating and determining how can we do this attitude. And many times what we're finding is you've moved in what would have taken several months to move to a tele-platform and done it in days. So that's outstanding work. And Plan, Do, Study, Act, rapid cycle change, which is what we work for here at MTM Services. And overcoming resistance to change with coaching your staff. You know, I don't want my client to see me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Well, working with your staff on kind of managing those concerns or issues, helping develop self-leadership, being able to manage without a structure around that, and taking a step back to actually see the horizon in the past, think about the hard work that you and your team have done, and celebrate every victory and reinforce appropriate behavior. Because what we're really looking at, team, is that finding those quick hits, those quick wins, an opportunity for celebration. So communicate in a remote supervision environment and helping build work and confidence and gaining momentum over time. And thinking about supervision and remoting supervision is kind of that targeted feedback, because it really helps the individual say, what do I need to do next between this week and next week? Think about short-term planning and think about the plan of a GURP note that we talked about earlier, but thinking about that in a coaching and supervision log. Continually review agency goals with your staff. Aids in supporting clinical and non-clinical work. Many times even our support team professionals are working remotely from call centers or from home to help schedule clients. The billing staff is continuing to work. And it provides that level of accountability between managers and staff. And so thinking about that coaching model, about structuring, what's today's session going to look like? Selecting and training. Does staff need training during this time? Even if clients, we see maybe a little bit of a dip in client service, what type of training can we offer our team members? Thinking about managing information, team building, having more and more opportunity to work with the group, and promoting change and innovation within your organization. Thinking about, supporting team members who need to work remotely with their supervisors, communication, direct, focused communication, support, feedback, and priority setting.
Some of the frequently asked questions that Michael and I have seen from teams across the country from a staff member's perspective are listed here, and we encourage you guys, supervisors and managers, to address these, but really any questions that are coming up with your teams. So how will I see clients? The most basic. What's the medium? Are we still doing centralized scheduling processes? What trainings will I have for working in a remote environment? How can I contact you or other leaders in case something comes up? Will we still be meeting as a team and having team supervision and team meetings? How will I handle a crisis or an emergency in a remote session? Am I still held to all the agency standards, getting my notes done in time, direct service hours? Are we doing groups in a remote environment? And generally, what tips are available to help me engage my clients in a remote session and keep them engaged? And how are we protecting the organization and our staff in terms of compliance standards and making sure we're meeting all those from an external perspective as well as the agency standards?
I think looking at staff in that telehealth environment is looking at supervision logs. So the same thing that you would come to supervision with in a brick and mortar or in your office, you're going to come to supervision prepared in a remote setting as well. So have your supervision logs, the documentation ready. Looking at your service activity data, productivity data, no-shows, cancels, late cancels, deficient data reports. Am I getting my notes done on time? Those types of things. Utilization management, utilization review. Corporate compliance doesn't stop just because we've moved to a remote environment. In fact, we may need to go in and enhance or beef up our corporate compliance or peer review or note review as part of that. And look at caseload reports. Who's active? Who hasn't been seen in 30, 60, 90? Are we losing contact with any of the consumers during this crisis? Did they move and shelter in place with another family member? They're not in their apartment anymore. They've moved home for a little bit. And so where do we need to get a hold of folks? I think also sending out that agenda at least 48 hours or 72 hours in advance. So what we recommend is, so if I'm supervising Kyle, I'm going to send him an agenda 72 hours in advance that really looks at kind of the reinforcement, the solution focused, kind of value setting that we're going to look at. And we're going to talk about some housekeeping issues, how to work remotely, perhaps how to really beef and look at your electronic health record, how to do your notes in real time, clinical functions, looking at what clinical needs there are of his clients, and case studies and clinical supervision and group or team supervision. But we need a supervision plan, because the supervision plan provides the focus of what types of supervision. Am I providing action planning today, administrative supervision, clinical supervision? The supervision plan provides that fair and equitable work environment for staff so they know how often am I going to have supervision. Let's put some opportunity in this that the staff know what to expect. So Kyle knows that every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we're going to have supervision. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we have team supervision. And so that doesn't change. Our continuum doesn't change for continuity. One of the things that we recommend, and this is going to seem very familiar to some of you, is the MTM service logs, the supervision logs. And you can see, and this can be done for both individual and group supervision. So this is the individual supervision log that really focuses on, the checkboxes at the top, and we'll go over those in a minute. Group supervision would be for like team supervision and things like that. So what we're going to do is Kyle and I are going to walk through some of this and kind of show you in real time kind of what that supervision would look like. And we'll pull up a supervision log. And if I'm having supervision with Kyle today, I'm going to type in here that I'm having supervision with Kyle. I'm his supervisor, and it's going to be for the adult mental health division. And I checkbox here ahead of time. I'm going to talk with Kyle about treatment planning, direct service standards, how to meet productivity, note completion, and then other. Kyle has said that he wanted to talk about kind of the tele environment, but also was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Kyle?
Yeah, I wanted to have a quick discussion on handling no-shows, as well as if my clients, a couple times I ran into them telling me I have tech issues, they can't see me, I can't see them, they can't hear me, things like that. And just how do we handle that?
So anything that I checkbox at the top here, team, I'm going to talk to Kyle about his treatment plans. So it looks like, Kyle, you've got 4 treatment plans due this month. Why don't you work with centralized scheduling to get those folks scheduled on your schedule so we can get that done. And then for the tele, it looks like you've also been able to accomplishment since last time is you did work with IT to get kind of set up and download the malware on your machine and those types of things that we needed. So that's a support plan for Kyle. We're going to put in a help desk ticket for you, Kyle, so we can help you do that. Because we've got the new signature pads in this week. We got those in, so we want to make sure that the clients can sign those treatment plans remotely. And what that means, you can actually do it on their cell phone or their screen, and that will be fine. We'll be able to make that happen. And then we're going to talk about support plans for Kyle. So things that we're going to look at to require the employee action kind of beyond the supervision session between this week and next week. So it looks like Kyle's overall, let's say, schedule rate might be down a little bit because he's had a couple no-shows, but overall it's improved in that environment. So we're seeing that's okay. So we're going to increase your schedule rate per day to about 34 to 38 client hours a week, Kyle. Front desk will be working with you to backfill. Make sure you've got your backfill list up to them. So those 4 clients that need treatment plans, let's make sure those get on your backfill list. Performance indicators, we're going to type here any updates that we need Kyle to do. We're going to meet again, let's say on 4/20. And then we're going to review again on 4/17. Okay, so we're going to review some of this and things like that. Then we're going to go into his clinical supervision. We're going to talk about high risk cases. Right, we're going to talk about kind of what happens when he has those no-shows for some of those clients. We're going to set up that emergency protocol in place. That if he has someone that's high risk, is there somebody that we can call in case of an emergency? If there's somebody there in the house that we can bring into our session if we need to. So really looking at those kinds of things. Kyle, is there anything else that you want to talk about in supervision today?
Nope, I think we covered it.
Okay. And so you're going to then cover or type in any updates from Kyle here. So in much the same way that we do collaborative documentation, we're going to use that last 15 minutes of our supervision to kind of synthesize what we talked about, game plan. Kyle, I'm going to send this to you so you can sign it. You can sign it electronically, send it back to me. I'll send a copy to you, and then we'll move back into play. So think about, in what way can we continue to do collaborative documentation? Coming into this with a we can do this, attitude. You hire for attitude, you train for focused skills. We define our work in what we do. Really delegating responsibility and celebrating victories.
This slide here summarizes a lot of what we talked about today, providing some tips for providing supervision in a remote environment. So establishing set days and times for when supervision will occur. Michael mentioned sending out that agenda 48 to 72 hours in advance, reviewing all the metrics that are needed that you're going to discuss with your team members, management skills training and team building, and using data in management and performance goals. Using that structured supervision log, whether it's individual or team, gaining feedback and understanding of where our team members need to improve, where their performance is at, and providing extra support in those specific areas, helping the team member establish a work area that's free of distractions and meets all the privacy and compliance standards. And this might involve IT as well.
And on behalf, I'd like to thank you for all your time and attention today. And hopefully you stay healthy. Any final words or comments, Kyle?
Nope. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.